Today we're going to talk about the viral case of Kayla Malec and her ex-boyfriend Evan Johnson, whom she recently exposed.
I realized it wouldn't stop, and he wouldn't stop hating me. He would never love me. And I opened my eyes to the fact that he never did love me. He resented me.
If I was such a terrible guy, why would she be with me? She could have left me at any moment.
James Charles supports Evan Johnson. Why is nobody talking about him?
Kayla, one of the biggest creators on TikTok, released a 4-hour video where she describes to the world everything he did to her. James Charles is also heavily involved in this, and yesterday there was a court hearing. Let's talk about everything. Kayla Malec, which is her real name, is a 20-year-old TikToker who was born on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2004. So she is 20 years old and currently has over 16 million followers. And throughout all of this, she has become one of the most famous people on all of TikTok. She was born in Illinois, now lives in California, and started posting her videos in 2019. She became famous mainly for her crazy storytime videos, her overall life content, as well as her makeup and piercings. That's the first thing I remember about her. She always has these like artificial freckles, and she actually has 2 piercings on each side of her nose, which is pretty unusual. Sometimes she even has 3, and that really set her apart from other girls. I even remember that she did a video with James Charles, where he turned her into a typical girl, gave her a classic makeup look, and it went really viral. That was in 2023. But the way this current situation with James Charles is going viral doesn't even compare to that. By the way, she also has a twin sister. Evan Johnson is quite mysterious. We don't know exactly how old he is. He's somewhere between 20 and 25. Some sources say he's 22, so that's probably his age. He's likely a few years older than Kayla. And now, after all that, he deleted all his social media and basically everything about himself except for OnlyFans. So I don't know much about him. I never knew him. And in general, the internet doesn't know much about him either. He only became famous thanks to Kayla and never really shared much personal information. Let's take a chronological look, meaning step by step, at the timeline of their relationship. Best sound. You can also use my cream as a base. If you haven't figured it out yet, I was 20. I don't understand it at all. Why did I do it? Their relationship probably started at the beginning of summer or at the turn of spring and summer in 2024, and they were first officially seen together at the premiere of some movie in LA. And that's when all the rumors were confirmed. But what's really scary is that I found a video of Kaylee flying to see him on June 8th, and the video is basically about her flying across all of America to see some guy, which is crazy that she actually flew to see him. It's scary because now we see what happened. All the comments there are basically saying that if she had known back then what would come out of it, she probably wouldn't have flown to see him. At first, their relationship seemed absolutely idyllic. He was one of Kaylee's first boyfriends, she really liked him a lot, and he was older. She was really excited about it, but over time she started to understand more and more what he was really like. On August 7th, Kayla saw his true colors for the first time. This was about 3 months into their relationship. They were drinking alcohol in the evening and swearing, which by the way was absolutely normal for those 3 months. They kept insulting each other and the insults were really harsh. Most of the time it happened when they were drinking alcohol, which they did together often, but even this early on things were already really bad. He very often thought that Kayla was cheating on him with someone. That's basically the whole thing that will keep repeating itself here over and over again. He just constantly thinks that Kayla is sleeping with someone she's not, even if that person isn't even into girls, and yet he still believes it. In this regard, he's actually completely crazy and extremely jealous. Once they were yelling at each other like that, he was calling her names, accusing her of sleeping with someone, calling her a slut and so on. Then he ran down the stairs saying he was going to leave, but he was really drunk. So Kayla didn't want him to leave, so she went after him and basically blocked the car. She basically stood in such a way that she was half inside the car and half outside, so that he simply couldn't drive away. He got really angry, and as he was yelling at her, he drew back his fist and started aiming at her. But right before her face, he moved his fist elsewhere and ended up smashing the car's windshield. At that moment, he supposedly didn't look like himself at all, but like some kind of demon. His eyes were completely empty. Dead. This is something that a lot of people who have encountered someone like this describe. Their eyes are just like a demon's. They don't look like themselves at all. At that moment, she started crying, fell to the ground, and doesn't remember the rest. She no longer knows whether he left or didn't leave or what they did next. Her brain has simply erased it, but the next day they needed to somehow cover up the hole in his front window. So Evan came up with the idea to post clickbait on his Snapchat stories about how Kayla had hit his car with a golf ball. At the same time, it was also a way to cover up the fact that he had smashed it with his own hand. Isn't that just the biggest psychopath vibes ever? So I get why he wanted to cover it up. Kayla was afraid that he might do something like that again, because she truly believed that he really wanted to hit her in the face, but changed his mind at the last moment because in the end, he didn't want to. But even back then, she thought he was probably capable of it. And 2 days later, her suspicions were confirmed. By the way, I have muffins here for the celebration, so I'll be snacking on them as the video goes on. Yum. And if anyone's wondering what this is, it's my diary. Yes, I'm a magical wizard from the 19th century. You don't have to ask, I know. So let's go to the 8th of the 9th. That was 2 days after this first incident, where Kayla saw for the first time what he was really like and what he was capable of. That day, they were drunk again, got into an Uber, and out of nowhere he started yelling at her in the Uber and then slapped her in the face. Don't ask me why. No one knows, not even Kayla. She got out and waited on the street for about half an hour while he had already gone home. Then she ordered a new Uber, got home, and when she went into his room, she saw him throwing up in the toilet. He was extremely drunk and just, in the bathroom. He immediately started yelling at her, saying he had to wait for her for half an hour. Like, how could she even imagine that he would wait for her for half an hour? He was very, very aggressive and she didn't understand it at all.
Smoke with love. Wow. Wait 30 minutes for your... I hope you reveal me. Oh, look out, look out.
In the end, he hit her in the face so hard that her lips were pressed against her teeth. Or maybe the other way around, her teeth into her lips, it's not funny. And he also started attacking the rest of her body. He continued by smashing her makeup vanity, which is basically a kind of cabinet or table with a mirror and lights where you do your makeup. That was simply her makeup table. He just destroyed it, broke the glass, and she ended up having glass in her makeup for several days afterward. Then he went to wash his hand because it was bleeding from breaking the glass, and she started recording it. This is actually one of the first pieces of evidence, of which there are many. The saddest thing about all of this is that there are a lot of people who definitely wouldn't believe her. None of this if she didn't have evidence. And that's also really scary. In this video, he also hurls more crazy insults at her, acts like a complete psychopath, says the N-word. You can just see how this person is a total, and I mean total, lunatic, a narcissist, and basically every bad word you can think of. This Danny also probably broke or dislocated her jaw. She says it several times in the video, and later she also refers to it like that was the day he dislocated my jaw, which is horrible. And it's possible that her jaw wasn't actually dislocated. That might have been something a little different, but in this case it doesn't matter at all. What he did to her is terrible. Sorry. Everyone keeps saying, hey, give me the net. Then in this video there is a part that she would rather not even talk about and doesn't want to watch. It's the part where her phone falls out of her hand and most people think he threw it against the wall. That's why she dropped the phone, because this is really bad, but it's by far not one of the worst things he did to her. All of this just kept escalating and escalating. Between August 9th and 29th, she just knows it was after that and before the end of August, but she doesn't remember the exact day another incident happened where she offered to wash his car. She told him that after he left for work, she would take the car and go wash it for him. And before he got back from work, the car would be there again. So basically he would have his car washed for free. She just wanted to help him. She knew he had a lot on his plate, so she offered. She simply enjoyed taking care of cars. And he said to her, why do you want to take my car? You're definitely just going there to meet up with one of my friends and you want to have something with him. Absolutely. He started yelling at her and accusing her, saying that this was the real reason she wanted to wash his car, that it wasn't just because she was being nice, so he forced her to go wash the car right then and there. He still didn't go to work with her. He just kept saying things like, if you want to wash the car so badly, come wash it with me, come wash it in front of me. They got there and he watched her as she washed the car for dozens of minutes, even hours. He kept telling her, look, there's still a spot here, clean this part too, clean this part too, clean this part too. Then she had to clean the inside of the car. Again, she had to scrub it like crazy. She had to be on her knees, on all fours, scrubbing it in front of him. He just kept telling her, here too, here too. For her, it was the most uncomfortable, the most dehumanizing thing. She didn't even feel like a person. She felt like some kind of servant to him, with him yelling at her the whole time, calling her the worst names, and she was still washing his car just because she offered. And now he accused her of some things like that. On top of that, he and his friend later laughed about it, like, haha, look what your girl had to do here. While she was cleaning it and they were arguing, he grabbed her by the hair as hard as he could while they were still sitting in the car and slammed her head against the window, the car window from the inside. He slammed her head into that window as hard as he could, and we even have this photo showing how the whole side of her face is swollen. She took this picture after they left that car wash. I'm 100% sure that he was cheating on her with someone. I'm really convinced about it, because that would be the reason why he was always so paranoid that she was cheating on him. You know, that's actually really common. It's like they say, the guilty dog barks the loudest, right? It's always the person who's doing something wrong who, because they're doing it themselves, thinks everyone else is doing it too, and so they accuse everyone else of it. But in reality, they're the one doing it, right? And I really think that's exactly what happened here. Yum. That's an amazingly good combination. Let's move on to August 29th and 30th. Kayla was really upset about everything and wanted to make things right. That's why she paid for a vacation to Hawaii for both of them. Of course, in this relationship, she was always the one who paid for everything. She paid for all the Airbnbs, all the flights, The rent she paid for everything, he didn't pay for anything at all. Of course, it makes sense. She was the one earning money, she was the famous influencer, but even so, I still think it's pretty messed up that she did all that. Anyway, they went to Hawaii together. They were there for several days, and on the 29th and 30th, there was another incident that she described in her video. That day, he was extremely aggressive because she had some guy in her Snapchat search history, probably a friend, or maybe she was just interested in some guy's Snapchat. It doesn't mean she was going to date him or anything, but he was there because he was always going through her phone, you know. He would go through her phone every day, and if he didn't check it for a while, he'd say, "Look at me, how good I am." I haven't looked through your phone in 2 months now, and he was probably exaggerating anyway. He kept going through her phone, he was extremely dependent on her and insanely jealous. So of course he started yelling like crazy and making a scene about that guy being there. He told her that if he saw the guy kiss her, he would just leave, he wouldn't stay with her, and of course she didn't want that. She was also extremely dependent on him. That's just how it works in these toxic relationships. So she didn't want him to leave. He kept threatening her that he would leave, even though he probably didn't really want to. It turned into a huge argument, and then they were already standing in front of the entrance to the Airbnb. He hit her in the head so hard that the other side of her head slammed into the Airbnb door, and she collapsed to the ground. She lay there curled up for several minutes, barely able to see, her field of vision narrowed. She could hardly see what was happening, because of course it was a terrible shock. And meanwhile, he kicked her as hard as he could and then left. Her ear turned black from it because she had badly bruised the cartilage there, and she had a huge bump on her face. Before he left, he even spat on her. He just had to do that, of course. Then, when they were inside, he tried to drag her somewhere. She doesn't remember where anymore, but he just wanted to drag her away. He wanted to go somewhere, and she didn't want to go there, so she grabbed onto the door of the Airbnb. In some kitchen, there was just a door there, and he pulled her so hard that he tore the whole door off its hinges. This video you're about to see is a fake tour of that Airbnb, which she made for herself because even back then she already knew she wanted to make all of this public and needed evidence. But she didn't know how to do it so that the evidence would look convincing and so that he wouldn't delete it from her phone later, since he was constantly going through her phone. So she recorded a sort of fake Airbnb tour, and in it she was filming saying, "I'm so stupid, I broke off this cabinet door." At the same time, you can see the carpet bunched up there. The carpet is bunched up because the morning after all this, he also forced her to make some video for TikTok with him, because he wanted to get famous too, and they had to reshoot it 5 times because he kept criticizing her for not looking happy enough. This is total Ruby Frankie vibes when she tells her son, "Act happier, even if you don't feel that way, just fake it. Be happier."
Be excited to tell them where your name came from. Even if you have to fake it, fake being happy. I don't know if I can right now.
Oh my god, after what you did yesterday just to be happy, okay. And if that wasn't enough, the reason I said it's the 29th and also the 30th of August is because he did it again that day. That day, he just beat her up again, in pretty much the same way as the day before. On October 30th, 2024, they were in Nashville because she was releasing some collection the next day, so she wanted to be in Nashville, which is where he's from. So actually, I don't know why she wanted to be there, whether his parents were already living there at that time. I'm not sure. She wanted to be in Nashville, and the day before she was supposed to release the collection, she went to some party, planning to stay only for a little while because she needed to get some sleep since she had the collection launch in the morning. But there was no one at the party, so they decided to just leave. They probably arrived too late or got the wrong house. There was simply no one in that house. Evan went out to the backyard with another friend to see if there was anyone there, if maybe part of the party was still going on or something. And she stayed inside with about 3 of his friends because they were in his hometown. He was from Nashville, Tennessee. But she didn't talk to those friends because at that point she was already forbidden to do so. She wasn't allowed to talk to other men, so they just stood there, which, yes, is extremely manipulative and stupid. And if someone does this to you, just run away. And she really didn't talk to them. Then, when everyone was inside, one of the friends said, "Well, let's go," and Kayla left. She broke up because someone said, "Alright, let's go," and everyone left. Not just her, everyone left, and they all left that Airbnb. This lunatic Evans made a total scene in front of the house, claiming that she definitely only left because his friend said it, and that if he had said it, she wouldn't have left, that basically she only listens to his friend, and that's because she wants something with him. And he also accused her of definitely, while he was out in the garden, telling his friend about her Snapchat so they could connect, because Snapchat is often used like that. So she told him, "Go ahead and look at my Snapchat, there's no one there, what are you making up?" And he just started a huge argument again. So he demanded her phone and told her he was going to go through the whole thing, but they were 45 minutes away from the Airbnb. They were there in Evan's car, so he was driving, and he took her phone for the entire 45-minute drive, because of course he was afraid that she might delete something before they got home, so she couldn't have her phone the whole time. She couldn't be on her phone during the drive, so they were all just sitting there. Then when they got home, he told her, "Go get your second phone while I wait in the car, and you can't take too long. You'll go in and come right back." You won't do anything on that phone, you won't even charge it, just bring it to me. So she brought her second phone, and then he sat in the car in the garage for about 3 hours actually, not about, definitely 3 hours going through both of those phones. Meanwhile, she was sitting upstairs crying and watching a movie, and she knows it was 3 hours because the movie was 3 hours long and she watched the whole thing. On November 5th of that year, or just 5 days later, they were in New York celebrating some achievement of Kayla's. She probably succeeded with that collection or something like that. There was just a big party and she was the main focus of the party. Of course, he didn't like that because he always wants to be the center of attention. He wants to have her all to himself. After that, they walked around New York for about an hour, went to Five Guys, took the subway, and he ignored her the whole time. He was just there with her, didn't say a single word to her, didn't respond to anything she said. That's another thing that manipulators and narcissists often do. They suddenly make themselves unavailable so that you start to crave talking to them. Before, you couldn't get a word in, and now you can't get anything out of them. And they just have to ignore you so that you have to fight your way to them, making them seem important and like the main person in the relationship. So he ignored her just to seem interesting and simply to avoid talking to her. And then they were already close to their Airbnb. They were already on the street where their hotel was, and Kayla turned to him, looked at him and said, "Why are you so quiet? What are you doing? I paid for this whole trip. Why aren't you just enjoying being in New York?" And of course, he started yelling at her like really badly. She was a little drunk, so she didn't really care anymore and slapped him. He got so angry that he grabbed her body and pushed her down the stairs to the subway. In New York, there's stairs to the subway everywhere, because the subway is literally everywhere. That's the main form of transportation there, and they're just these concrete stairs. It's basically a hole in the ground, and you have one on every street, often several times. He pushed her down there, and she flew, because it was such a strong push that she flew over half the stairs, then landed halfway down and tumbled to the ground. When she was lying there, she experienced the greatest pain she had ever felt. She couldn't move her legs, and her spine hurt terribly. She thought she was completely paralyzed and would never walk again. And then she looked up, and he was just standing there at the top of the stairs, simply staring at her with a blank expression on his face. Fortunately, some girl who was passing by saw it and said to her, "I saw everything, are you okay?" And then she started yelling at the guy who was standing at the top of the stairs. She said she would call the police on him, and he ran away. He just bolted back to his room. Like, this is actually an attempt at not living, like, for real. Luckily, she wasn't paralyzed, and that girl then helped her get back to the hotel. She couldn't walk for about 3 more days because everything hurt so much. On November 17th, she went to some party, and she went there with Emma and that boyfriend. Emma, who is going to be very important here because she literally saved her life, was her roommate. She didn't exactly know everything because Kayla didn't tell her much. But of course, since she was her roommate, she witnessed a lot of those things. He was at that party, and she lost him. She simply didn't know where he was, and she thought to herself that it was actually pretty good because he wouldn't be bothering her. But she still called him because she knew that if she didn't call or try to reach him, he would be angry that she hadn't looked for him. Then she saw him inside drinking a huge amount of alcohol, just insanely. He was drinking straight from the bottle. An incredible amount. And suddenly he started vomiting all over the whole villa. It was just coming out of him everywhere. Then they went outside and she laid him down on those little stones next to the bushes. They were lying there and she was trying to make sure he was okay. He was vomiting everywhere there and she wanted to call 911, just call an ambulance. Fortunately though, since it was a pretty good party, there was a medic there. The medic came over and said, "He's fine. He's just really drunk. Take him home, he's banned from coming back." So they took an Uber, but in the Uber he started vomiting a lot more. Then he said he couldn't breathe. His heart stopped beating. She had to perform CPR on him, some kind of first aid. And then he started vomiting blood, so she had to kind of suck out the blood and spit it out just to keep it from getting everywhere. Of course, at that point, she called an ambulance. Then the ambulance arrived and took him to the hospital. This was the most traumatic experience she had ever gone through. To this day, she absolutely can't get over it. And after 2 hours, she got a call. "Hey, I'm back. Shall we go somewhere? Or should we go home?" He was completely fine because they pumped his stomach, so they got everything out of him. And suddenly he was sober again, and they went home. She just couldn't understand it at all. Later, when they were at home, he was in her bed and she was bringing him food. She ordered Taco Bell, brought him drinks and everything. Then he said something like, "Hey, do you think I should stop drinking?" And she, yes, he did. And he said, "Then let's stop drinking together." And she said, "No, I can drink. I don't have a problem like you. I'm not an alcoholic." And of course, another huge argument started again. Literally right after she saved his life, he also had some kind of seizure, some kind of fit. He was just shaking all over. And he told her that someone had drugged him at the party, that someone had slipped something into his drink. And then later she found out that wasn't true. He had just drunk way too much. So much that he almost died from it. So he even made up a story so it wouldn't be his fault. Anyway, of course it turned into a huge argument, saying that she drinks too and that she needs to stop drinking, which yes, Kayla did drink, but she didn't have nearly as much of a problem as he did. Not even close. Of course, he started hitting her again and yelling at her. This went on until Emma, the roommate, showed up. She started yelling at him to stop immediately. And so he stopped. Then they went together to Emma's room, locked themselves in and tried to go to sleep, but they were afraid that he might do something during the night.
"When I sober up, I'm gone.
Hello, can I come in?
You're dirty water, bitch."
How do I get him out of my fucking room?
They were thinking, damn, he's gonna kill us tonight. And of course, after a little while, they heard footsteps as he came up to the door. They said those doors are solid, there's no way he could ever do anything to them. But he was strong and he just completely tore the door off its hinges. He broke them, practically made a hole in them, got inside and started yelling at them. They were hiding in the corner like this, scared of him. Then he took Emma's vape and left. He went to sleep. And in that state, they went to sleep too. And only in the morning did they record everything when he wasn't there.
Literally, like... Literally, what the fuck? I hope everyone knows how hard this is. Like, that is... Oops.
You yourselves are probably asking now, why was she with him? It just doesn't make sense. Right now, you're just describing how he totally tyrannized her. But we have to realize that what she's telling us are only the very worst moments. And in between, there were probably a ton of really good moments, like seriously a lot. That's almost always how it is in these kinds of relationships. They just have these horrors, but then suddenly everything is great. And then the victim thinks like, oh yeah, he just has this problem, this childhood trauma. He just needs to deal with it. Oh god, poor guy. I actually understand why he does it, and they basically start pretending that he doesn't do it. Then he does it again, they want to leave for a while, and then suddenly everything is really good for a long time. This is just what these manipulators do here, and that's exactly what he... So we can't just say, why didn't she just leave? It's incredibly hard to live relationships like that. Really, really hard. On November 24th, they went to some club to celebrate her friend's birthday. They went there again with Emma, and of course she also went with Evan. What a terrible name, Evan. Evan, what kind of name is that? She went there with Evan and also with Brannan, who was her gay friend. Evan, which I know isn't actually pronounced that way, okay? But that's just how I pronounce it, just like I say Trump as Trump, and in my head, it's just Trump, so this is Evan, okay? Okay. Evan, of course, thought he wasn't gay and that they wanted to sleep together, or that they were even doing it regularly. So he absolutely hated him. And of course, he was already annoyed the whole time at the party because Kayla wasn't giving him 100% of her attention. He always hated that. Then she wanted to tell Brennan something, so she kind of, since it was noisy, took his face and spoke right into his ear. Because honestly, there's no other way to do it. It's incredibly loud there. When he saw that, he completely lost it. He was extremely angry. He totally made a scene in the whole club. He started yelling at her, then he forced her to twerk on Brennan. Like, well, go ahead and twerk right now. If you want to sleep with him so badly, then go twerk on him, which is completely the opposite of what he always says. He wants her not to be with him, right? So why is he now forcing her to twerk on him? But he basically said that if she didn't do it, he would beat Brennan up. So of course she did it, because she wanted to protect him. And that was that night. That's just how he ruined absolutely any night. Then, I think he even took them to the back, to some kind of back room in the club, and there he started yelling at them terribly again, and he threw them into the chairs that were just stored there. He left. But he was still extremely angry. Really extremely. So then they came home, where Emma was already there, but at that time neither of them knew that their roommate was home. They were at home and he kept yelling at her. Kayla then threw a blanket over herself and pretended to be asleep or to be going to sleep just so he wouldn't talk to her. And he kept getting closer and closer. She was thinking, he'll stop now, right? He can see that I'm sleeping. Suddenly he went for her and started choking her. With both hands he was just strangling her. As if he wanted to kill her. Kayla said that she thinks she's convinced that he didn't even have that thing in his head anymore. The thing that tells you, stop, this is wrong, don't do it, this is wrong. He just kept going. She couldn't breathe, she absolutely couldn't breathe. He was so incredibly heavy that she just couldn't get him off her. She started turning blue, she stopped feeling everything, like her hands and so on. Her field of vision started to narrow. And then she said that her last chance was just to scream as loudly as she could. And she didn't even know if it was possible, given that she was suffocating like that. But it worked. And with all her strength, she screamed help at the top of her lungs, but she didn't know that Emma was there. She thought maybe some neighbor or someone would hear her, and she told herself, it's too late anyway. He's just going to kill me. Emma came into the room, started yelling at Brennan like crazy, and so he got off. That's how she survived. This was already around 4 in the morning, and then Emma texted someone else, holy shit, he just almost strangled Kayla. Do you get that? A second attempt at not living, and a pretty serious one. This is really, like he just wouldn't have stopped, or at least that's what Kayla thinks. On New Year's, they went together to Las Vegas, where her twin sister was supposed to be like proposed. On New Year's, they went together to Las Vegas, where her sister's boyfriend was supposed to propose to her sister, the twin. They were supposed to do it exactly at New Year's right, when the fireworks went off. In the very first minutes of 2025, he was going to propose to her. And there were also some of her other friends there, along with her ex. When they were there, already on the first day, Evan started telling her sister's now fiancé, hey, Kayla definitely wants to sleep with you. It's totally obvious, she just wants to do it with you. She's a total slut, a whore. Because those are the words he used all the time. And then, once again, he ignored Kayla the whole time. He just kept doing his narcissistic, manipulative crap. Then New Year's came, the fireworks went off, and he proposed to her. Everything was great until Mr. Evans once again realized that the whole moment wasn't about him, so he had to start an argument to make it all about him again. I don't even remember what the argument was about anymore. I think it was again about how she supposedly wanted something with his brother, because she looked at him in some specific way and other nonsense like that. Yeah, it was just total nonsense. Then they went to a club and the entrance fee was $50, which is quite a lot. But they went there to celebrate. They went there to celebrate the fact that they were newly engaged. That probably isn't even a thing, but I just made it up now. So they're newly engaged and they went there to celebrate, so they just decided they would pay for it. But he was totally, really angry that he had to pay. Then, after he actually paid, or maybe Kayla even bought it for him and they were already in the club, he turned to her and said, "I hate you, I can't stand you." But seriously, not in an ironic way. He said it to her face, which by the way, he would say to them all the time. Then he went further into the club and the lady at the ticket counter said to Kayla, "He's not the right one, you don't want him." And Kayla kept telling herself like, "Yeah, it's him, it's really him, it's definitely him." Poor thing was just out of it. Well, a little bit, but she was manipulated. We get it. Now you're probably wondering, look, it's been 9 months already. When do they finally break up? How did it happen? It happened in Hawaii. Again, the same kind of things were happening there as had been going on this whole time. I've already skipped over so many events, unbelievable. If I were to talk about everything that happened, we'd be here for the same 4 hours, maybe even longer, just sharing opinions. What she said, I would have said too, so it would really be long if we went through it all, and I'm just mentioning the most important, the key things. So then they were in Hawaii, and again, something happened between them. She told him that they just needed a break, you know? That they needed to kind of stop. This was around the 15th of January, and he agreed to it, so they were basically on a break. The break was about him working on himself, going to therapy, and all that kind of talk. She still kind of believed that he would actually change. Then, a few weeks or maybe days after this sort of breakup, Kayla met some girl, and this girl started telling her how her own relationship was similar, that she had similar videos and similar evidence. She has a similar boyfriend, and it's been the same for 5 years. What took 2 months for Kayla took 5 years for this other girl, and Kayla realized he's not going to change. This is proof. He won't change, and am I supposed to spend the rest of my life with him? No way. So she broke up with him over text, because he had also broken up with her over text before, right? Over text. It's just complicated. After he broke up with her, she called him, they went for a walk to talk things over, but it didn't work. She was even afraid to go there. What if life finally takes her there? As you can probably tell, I left out a lot. At one point, he wanted her to overdose and gave her those Skittles, those M&Ms, right? Basically, the stuff you use to overdose. She put it in her mouth, then spit it out, but he suspected that she had taken it anyway. He yelled at her. The police, yeah. So the police just showed up for Kayla, he called the police, and when they left and Kayla was still there, he said, "Man, that's a shame, I wanted to see them take you away in handcuffs." He had already been, he'd been in prison before, right? He wanted the same thing for her, so he said, "I want them to handcuff you, just like they handcuffed me before, so you suffer the same way I did." He told her several times to take her own life, just straight up told her to kill herself, said it right to her face. There was just so much of it, totally random. He would pinch her, pull her hair. When she was burned, he would hit her right on the burn to make it hurt even more. He did all sorts of things to her, things he knew would really hurt her, over and over. Well, maybe not constantly. Like, it was always spaced out, so there would be some nice moments in between just to keep her around, because he wanted fame, he wanted money, he wanted her to make him famous so he could be known and then have his own career. He wanted to be a model and all that, so of course he was using her for that, and she paid for everything for him, so it's obvious he was taking advantage of her. At first, I was wondering if it's even right for me to be telling her story like this in this video, but then I realized that actually her only real goal, the one she keeps talking about, is that she wishes when she was in that relation, she could have seen a similar video and realized how bad it was and left immediately. And her goal is for as many people as possible to see this video. Her videos have had hundreds of millions of views, so I think she would want this, because I just keep spreading her story and spreading it about how incredibly important it is to just love the person, because you don't know how it will escalate. Recently we saw the story of Gabby Petito, which had similar signs. Brian Laundrie was a similar kind of lunatic, and then we saw what happened. We also saw that in this case, he tried to take her life at least once, maybe even twice, and possibly more times. So this is also a sign for all of you. If you are with someone, whether as friends or in a relationship, who has similar symptoms to him, embrace it. I know you might be thinking, but I'll lose this and that, and I want this and that. It's never worth it. And you'll find someone much better. Leave them, okay? I don't want to say leave him, even though I know it's usually a guy, but it can be a girl too. If it's her, then leave as well, because it's really not worth it. There's even a statistic that if your partner tries to strangle you even once, because that's a common thing they do. That's actually how Gabby Petito died too. He strangled her. So the chance that they'll actually take your life for real next time increases by 700%. That's really scary. He obviously felt like he was living in her shadow. He was a total narcissist, but of course that stems from the fact that he's actually really insecure. He just doesn't believe in himself, he doesn't like himself, and that's also why he's so jealous. At the same time, he's ashamed of himself, and it's really a deadly combination. She says she had to realize that, in fact, he never loved her. If he had loved her, he would never have done this to her. And when she realized that, it was much easier for her to kiss him, because why would she be with him? She also said that she had to realize that she never really knew him. She only knew the good parts and imagined him in a positive light, but the reality is completely different, and she only started to truly get to know that person now. Now, people are commenting under her video saying, I left him today, like today I finally left him. Thank you for giving me the strength. But there are also people writing things like, my mother was with a similar person and she didn't survive it. Thank you for spreading this. Honestly, this case has brought so much attention, it's really amazing, really positive. After she kissed him, she fell into the deepest depression she had ever experienced. Of course, she had to tell her family everything and started to come to terms with it, but it still didn't really hit her until the 4th of April, when she began posting videos on TikTok and, most importantly, released a video on YouTube called He Never Loved You. That's the first part of the 4-hour series. It's the first part, which is 2 hours long, where she describes about half of their relationship. And actually, that was also the day when she announced everything he had done to her. She started posting things on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and that's when this whole affair took off. In fact, up until it all started, she didn't even realize that it had really happened to her. It was so crazy that she didn't even really feel it as much back then as she does now. Right now, she says it's actually the worst period for her, because she really has to fully feel it in order to get through it, that you just can't ignore it and move on, but you really have to understand it, which is awful. A few days after she handed it over, it became the biggest thing on the internet. And I even considered making a video about it back then, but I knew that something else was still gonna happen. So I waited. And it paid off, because if I had made the video earlier, it would have been absolutely incomplete. Now, we already have the court verdict, and we also have that whole James Charles thing, which is really annoying. Why does James Charles get involved in everything? And we'll get to that. But now let's move on to Evan's statement, because around April 7th, a few days after she released that first video, he made his own statement. It was filmed in a car by one of his modeling best friends, some model friend who is also helping him become a model. And in that video, he basically denies everything. He's sitting there in the car, and it looks like they planned it together, right? So now they're filming it, they went to record it. He says there that she keeps contacting him, that she was actually in touch with him right up until the last moment, that they have what's called the trauma bond, like a trauma connection, which is really common. Basically, when you traumatize each other with someone, or even if someone just traumatizes you, you don't have to traumatize them back. You end up having this weird connection with them because of the trauma, because you kind of go through it together, even though that person is the one who did it to you and they're awful, but you still have this strange bond. So apparently she contacted him several times even after they broke up. So that was supposed to be one of the proofs, like, why would she contact me if I was so terrible? Which doesn't make any sense at all. It has nothing to do with him. And overall, he questions why she would stay with me for 9 months if I was so awful, which I find honestly kind of funny. He really thinks that if someone is supposedly terrible, the other person would automatically break up with them. That's just not how it works. You don't always break up with someone just because they did something bad to you, sure. Often you do, but sometimes you don't. It's just absolutely not a statement that he did anything wrong. You can be in a relationship for 10 years with someone who does absolutely terrible things to you for 10 years, but you still care about them in some way. People aren't that simple. Like, they do something bad, I leave, even though maybe it would be better that way, but that's just not how it is. He also says, like, she could have left me anytime. She has so much money, she's super famous, she has so many options, she could have so many guys. So why would she stay with me? Because she liked you, man. According to him, she also exaggerates things and turns the whole thing into this series for views and for money. Of course, she's doing it for the summary and for money. If she had to go through it, then at least she's using it for something good, right? She shows others, mainly women, but not just women, that they should leave. She shares a story, gets her truth out there, gets it off her chest, and at the same time makes money from it and gains popularity. Why wouldn't she do that? I mean, you did that to her. She has every right to do whatever she wants with her own story. And if she's milking it and making money off it, let her do it. If you went through something similar, you'd probably want to milk it too. You'd also want to get as much out of it as possible. Logically. Why is he presenting it as something bad? First of all, it's her job. And second, even if she weren't an influencer and was just using this story, it's still her story. You hurt her. If she were the one doing the hurting and wanted to profit from it, just like he's now making money off his OnlyFans, even though he's the one who did the hurting, then that would be wrong. Which, by the way, I just made up that word, okay? But let's keep using it. But when she's the victim, then it's allowed. Okay. So he did admit that he was controlling, that he was extremely jealous, that he thought she was sleeping with everyone. He admitted that. He said, yeah, that was wrong. So great. He admitted 1 out of 100 things. Congratulations. And then he also said that now he's changing, that he's abstaining and going to therapy and modeling, that he has his own career. He's a model now. He's improved. He's changed. A model? You mean like an OnlyFans model? Or, he talks about how while Kayla was going to parties and getting drunk, he was improving himself and becoming a better person. Apparently, after all those videos were published, she wrote to him, sorry, I had to do it. Okay? And what does that mean? Like, does that mean you made it up? Or is that how she apologized to you? Okay, like, yeah, she didn't have to write you anything, but fine. She wrote, sorry, I had to do it. Probably because logically you were afraid she would make it public. And she actually did publish it, so she apologized to you for that. Because we know that he was really afraid this would happen, that it would ruin his career and reputation, which is what happened, so she apologized to him. Okay, let's move on. And then he actually showed more proof that she contacted him even after the breakup. On February 12th, she sent him a snap. Just a photo of herself. A normal photo of herself. Okay, so she messaged you. You're innocent. She messaged you, or like, what does he think? She probably still liked you in some way. Maybe she wanted to stay friends with you. Or maybe she just wanted to send you a snap, or maybe she sent it to you by mistake, but like, so what? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? We have other evidence about you, so why can't you provide some evidence that actually means something? Overall, he claims that she was toxic too, that she was also drunk, and that it wasn't just one-sided, and now she's supposedly making up this PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all these things. I just want to say that a victim doesn't have to be perfect, you know? It doesn't have to be that the victim did absolutely nothing in the whole world, 0%, and the aggressor did 100%. Yes, maybe she drank too and maybe she even slapped you back, but that still doesn't mean you didn't do what you did. It doesn't mean that you weren't the one starting the arguments and you weren't the problem. And at the same time, why do we think that the victim simply isn't allowed to do anything? I mean, it's probably pretty hard not to do anything to you when you behave the way you do. Maybe it's just some kind of reaction to your behavior, and even if it wasn't, then okay. It's not exactly ideal alcohol, yelling, and a slap, right? Those three things. It's not exactly ideal, but compared to you have absolutely nothing to talk about. By the way, during all this, he was also detained for some of his previous problems, things he had done before. But then, on April 18th, Kayla released a video saying that he had been officially arrested. She simply wrote he was arrested, and this time it was because of her case. He was arrested, but that same evening someone got him out of jail for $30,000. Someone bailed him out, in other words, paid his bail. On April 21, she released a video about how she watched the Gabby Petito documentary and how, of course, the documentary really upset her and worsened her mental health. She saw a lot of things in Brian that she also saw in Evan because, yes, they're both manipulators and narcissists. And then she said the scariest thing. He was forcing her into van life. He wanted to do van life with her. He wanted to travel with her in a van, isolated across America. Guys, I'm telling you, he definitely wanted to take her life. He just wanted to have her all to himself. And in my opinion, it would have ended up just like Gabby Petito. And we would have had another Gabby Petito, which is really the last thing we want, another Gabby Petito. As if it's just so incredibly scary. By the way, the internet thinks the same thing. Everyone is commenting like, yeah, he would have definitely done that to you, and it's really scary. Honestly, van life is really scary if you're not traveling with a good person. Anyway, after all of this, she found out some really bad information. That's how she presents it. We don't know exactly what it is. We also don't know what exactly she found out when she was filming the second part of He Doesn't Love You. She received some message. She actually saw on her phone while she was recording that she got a message and said, I hate that guy. It was about Evan. And we don't know if it was about him just being released or if it was something new she found out that he did to someone else. Because there's also talk about previous victims. We don't know, but she got that message too.
It was supposed to be Airbnb.
And now she received another message, which was about the fact that one of her friends, whom she trusted a lot, actually gave Evan the new address where Kayla is living now, because she suddenly moved to live in a different house than she did with him, since she didn't want him to find her. And now he had the address again, plus apparently there were other things that the friend said and shouldn't have. She was basically talking about how some really bad person betrayed her. And suddenly people started talking about James Charles and actually started saying that he was definitely the one who got Evan out of jail. He has the money for that, and that maybe he was the one who betrayed her because they were friends. They even made a video together. Now, we already know that he didn't pay for his release and that it was actually paid by one of Evan's family members, in fact, by someone close to him. Yeah, so it wasn't him, and we'll get to James in a moment. Let's finish this story for now. Evan started an OnlyFans. He did delete all his social media, but he kept his Instagram and OnlyFans. I guess he didn't know how else to make money, so he just started selling his body. He shows everything there, and I don't even know what else to say about it. I guess it just shows his character, that he really cares a lot about the money. And now, with all this attention on him, he wants to squeeze out as much as he can before he goes to prison. On May 5th, Kayla flew to Nashville, which is the city he's from. That was extremely traumatic for her. She already started crying at the airport and had some panic attacks there because that's where it all happened, or at least most of it. And she went there specifically for the trial, which took place on May 7th. And on May 7th, she filmed a Get Ready With Me for Court, where she was just getting ready for the trial.
Get ready with me for court.
She talked there about how incredibly scared she was, but that she was sure what the outcome of the trial would be. At that trial, she also had to see him for the first time. Before we talk about the outcome of the trial and what will happen next, because she kept saying that after the trial she would be able to say much more, since it would no longer affect the proceedings. We'll get to that. But now, let's talk about what this woman did with James Charles. She was actually sitting there before the trial, and James Charles is also waiting before he says anything about the trial, so let me start it off somehow. There have been speculations that James Charles, the influencer with probably the most scandals and drama on planet Earth, was of course part of the biggest scandal ever, Dramageddon, where he lost millions of followers only to gain them back again. He has videos with 60 million views where he apologizes, and besides that, he had another million scandals. James Charles allegedly dated Evans. Yes, that's the guy who kept saying that Kayla was dating some gay guy, and then he dated a gay guy himself. Bro, I can't. Apparently, it's being said that James Charles was sending him money. During all of this, he paid for his plane ticket so he could come live with him, sent him certain photos, and was basically on Evan's side. And actually, when Evans broke up with Kayla, James wrote to Kayla, so can I have him now? I'll take him, okay? I'll have him now, right? Fortunately, most of this is speculation, even though there is some truth to it. Not all of it is true. But when I saw this, when I was working on this script, I thought to myself, oh my god, this is the craziest plot twist in the universe. Luckily, most of this isn't true, right? Let's break it down. All of this came out after the interview between Be Better and Zeke Sellers, which Zach Sellers presents himself as a former acquaintance of James and the former best friend of Evans, but we don't even know how much of that is true, right? The same information, besides Zeke Sellers, was also claimed by Michaela Testa, who was actually involved last time in that huge Anipol drama, where her brother was Michaela Testa's boyfriend Atis. She was dating him. But that was something completely different, and we won't be dealing with that today. But Michaela Testa also confirmed it and said, like, this is a message for all Australians. Did you know that James Charles is dating the guy who broke Kayla's jaw and is supporting him financially? She just wanted more drama.
Just letting everyone in Australia know that James Charles is sleeping with Evan Johnson, the one that broke Kayla Malec's jaw.
That Zach Sellers, the one who was in that interview, said that the whole time he was actually on Evan's side because Evan was making himself out to be the victim in this whole situation. He actually thought Kayla was the terrible one, and he was on her side the entire time. Until he found out what really happened. Zach talked about how Evan never he kept confiding that he was terribly afraid that Kayla would go public, that she would reveal everything about him. He also claimed to have seen the actual FaceTime between James Charles and Evans, saying that they were actually dating. He even said he saw photos that James Charles sent to Evans, which were explicit. James Charles allegedly told Evans that Kayla is a well-known psychopath, that she makes everything up, or finally you got rid of that manipulator, and things like that James Charles supposedly said about Kayla, even though in 2023 they made a YouTube video together and looked like friends. After all of this started blowing up, he released his own statement, about 8 minutes long, not really an apology, but more like a clarification of the situation. James Charles came out saying that he absolutely does not support him, that he is 100% on Kayla's side, he was never on Evan's side, and that the person who was in the Be Better interview is completely slandering him, and that there's nothing true about it, except for one tiny detail that he admitted was true, but nothing else about it is real. He said that he made the whole thing up and that he has proof that he made it up. He also said that he is suing Zach Sellers for defamation, for slander, for lies, and similar things. So let's take a look at what James Charles said and how he clarified his situation. And I just want to say that even though in this case James is probably right and really didn't do some things, that doesn't excuse him for other things James Charles has done. I just want to set the record straight on that. At the beginning, he actually said that Kayla isn't speaking to him and that he understands why she's not talking to him, but precisely because he can't contact her, he wants to tell his side of the story publicly so that she can see it too. First, he showed the screenshot of that well-known message. Okay, can I have him now? After she broke up with him, and he showed the full context. It was about him messaging Kayla, asking if she and her man, together with her boyfriend, would like to make a video for his makeup brand Paint. And Kayla replied to him, no way. He's a complete psychopath and I'm going to make a 30-part video series about everything he did to me. And James Charles wrote, haha, can I have him now? Or, I'm sorry, but can I have him now? And it was really like a joke. James Charles then said, I'm sorry, it's a shame he's so mean. But he admitted that honestly, he didn't really take it seriously. He thought it was just some messy breakup, that maybe he had cheated on her. Based on those messages, it definitely didn't occur to him that he had done something so terrible to her, and he didn't really think about it any further. He later admitted that, yes, he really did pay for Evan to fly to his place, bought him a plane ticket, and had him stay at his house for several days. But he said that absolutely nothing ever happened between them. Like, that they didn't do anything, that they just hung out on the couch, ate chips, and talked, just talked. Supposedly it was more of a friendly thing, though people don't really believe that. I'm not saying anything, it could be true, but then he started getting a weird vibe from Evan. He started to realize that maybe Evan wasn't exactly the person he claimed to be. So he asked him if he could please leave, and the next day Evan flew home. Apparently that's everything that happened there. And when he later saw the video Kayla released, he was absolutely shocked. He couldn't understand at all that he once had this guy in his home, that he actually talked to him, and that Evan seemed pretty normal to him. All the while, he was doing all of this. James even got a message from Zach Sellers afterwards, which was actually positive, and he said, "Hey James, I know you also talked to Evan." And now we've all actually found out about it. I can't believe we were so incredibly manipulated. Look at how much he manipulated us. I thought I was his best friend. And he was kind of on James's side. But then, out of nowhere, after Kayla released her side of the story, this Zach Sellers started streaming on TikTok, talking about everything James Charles did. Basically turned against him and started making up those lies. Most likely just for clout, money, and fame. He even did things like, "Send me a galaxy and I'll tell you another piece of evidence about James Charles." And he was totally milking it like this, even though he really shouldn't have been milking. Ith wasn't the victim. So James pretty much confirmed that Zach Sellers is making things up, that he's just someone who's after money and trying to cash in. That's also why he went on that Be Better interview and made things up. And since James Charles doesn't agree with him here, he's obviously suing him now. Zach Sellers even claimed that he has an explicit video of Evan and James doing it together. And James Charles said, "Alright, you have my full permission to release this video. You have my full permission, you can distribute it everywhere, you have all the rights to it," because James knows that this video simply doesn't exist. Which is actually pretty solid evidence. If it did exist and James gave him that kind of permission and then Zach actually released it, that would be bad. But he didn't do it because he doesn't have the video. With this, he pretty much confirmed it. At the same time, Be Better, the guy who kind of initiated the podcast, the one who runs the podcast, he accused James of collaborating with YouTube to actually suppress Be Better's video in the algorithm so it would get fewer views, which is just total nonsense. And mainly that video has 600,000 views. So they probably didn't suppress it that much, right? Be Better probably just thought he'd get 6 million views and now he's bitter because he only has 600,000. Do you see it there? Bitter. Better. Cool, right? Cool. So, on May 7th, the trial finally took place. As Kayla said, she was sure about the outcome, and it was confirmed. Of course, she won the lawsuit against Evan and recorded 2 extremely viral videos. One of them has about 100 million views, where she basically just says, "We won, we did it." And she used Kanye West's song Jail in it, because somewhere it's written that Evan is now going to prison for 2 years. At the same time though, official articles say that he'll only get probation for that period, which both seem way too little to me. I hope this will be just the first of a million trials, because probation for 2 years for an attempt at this, that's insane. The trial itself was incredibly fast. So honestly, I don't know. We don't really know much from Kayla about this trial yet. We just know that she won and that it was really huge. There were a lot of fans around the trial, a lot of people. It was really a positive day for her, because now Evan is finally in prison and can't do anything to anyone. He's been convicted, and for the rest of his life, this will officially and legally follow him. That's amazing. As both Kayla and James Charles said, after the trial they want to say a lot more. But I'm recording this video the day after the trial, and so far neither of them has released anything. So if they do release something new, I'll let you know here. 3, 2, 1. Player from the future. Update regarding the case. Here I am from the future. Hi. Correction. He didn't just get probation. Kayla specified that he got 1.5 years, and he got it specifically for domestic violence, drunk driving, and violating his probation, which he already had. Kayla said that he could only get a maximum of 5 years anyway, because all these sentences are very low in the state of Tennessee, so on top of that, he might even be released earlier for good behavior. And Kayla says that it's not much, but she's grateful that he'll be in prison at all, that now she knows she has a 1.5 years of peace and can feel safe, and at the same time, she's glad that the sentence is longer than the time she was with him, because she was with him for 9 months, and she thinks at least he'll have to suffer for a longer period, even though he's already used to prison. He's been there before, we'll talk about that, and she assumes it still won't be as hard for him as those 9 months were for her, but she's just glad that it will last long. He admitted to everything, said he was guilty, and accepted the court's proposal for a 1.5 years. In fact, the fact that he accepted the court's conditions meant that there was no complicated trial, there was no jury, it didn't drag on for a long time, it wasn't some crazy long proceeding like what's happening with Didi right now. Basically, it was all very quick, because it happened right after Kayla revealed it. If he had said he didn't do it, it would have been a completely different kind of trial. Anyway, what she also said is that he did all these things to her in 4 different states. It was Tennessee, California, Hawaii, and New York. This trial was only for what he did in Tennessee. Kayla is currently putting together criminal charges in the state of California as well. She didn't specify whether she would do the same in New York and Hawaii, but in California, where she lives, she will definitely go through with it. So we can expect another trial to take place, and that he might spend even more time in prison, unless he only gets probation this time. One of the strange things is that Evan keeps posting things on Snapchat, but it's probably someone else doing it for him, basically just trying to confuse the public. I don't think Kayla would lie about being in prison right now. I think it's there if it says so. And so I think it's either being posted by some friend or he somehow scheduled it to be released automatically. Even so, all the snaps he's posting aren't actually current. They're basically his old various photos of him playing golf, of him on some vacation, of him just doing something with a car. So I don't think he's actually posting anything anywhere right now. Another interesting piece of information she mentioned is that a year ago around this time they were at exactly the same court together. Specifically, it was about 11 months ago, so in a month from now it will have been a year. Right before they met, he violated his probation. We don't know what he was on probation for, maybe it was also for driving under the influence or something similar. And apparently their second date was at the court. Basically, a week after they first met, he invited her to his court hearing where he was found guilty and sent to jail for 22 days. That day went like this. They woke up at 6 in the morning, went to the court, waited in some room upstairs, and then went to room 4D where the actual trial took place. And a year later, she woke up at 6 in the morning in an Airbnb with her family, went to the court, went to the same waiting room upstairs, and then again went to room 4D where this trial was also taking place. But this time she wasn't sitting on his side. She was sitting on the other side and basically looking at him as if he were a completely different person. She finds it crazy how a year ago or 11 months ago, she had absolutely no idea who she was dealing with, who she was actually talking to. And now, how she was looking at him from a completely different perspective. What she described is that as soon as he came into the courtroom, she couldn't take her eyes off him. She was basically drilling a hole into his head with her gaze. Even though she was shaking terribly, she was extremely nervous. Apparently, she was trembling the whole time, staring at him because she just didn't want to take her eyes off him. Then that same judge sentenced him. And when he was leaving the room in handcuffs, heading to custody, she looked at him and smiled. And she was the very last person he saw in that room. Just the way she smiled at him. Which kind of made her happy that for those 9 months, he was the one winning and now she finally won. Now she's already flown to LA and showed us on her stories that she'll be releasing more evidence. She's probably talking about evidence regarding James Charles. Hopefully she'll release it before this video comes out. James Charles hasn't commented on it any further since then. Kayla has finally spoken out about the situation with James Charles. It's really recent, but I think she said everything that needed to be said. It all started when Kayla first revealed her boyfriend Evan about 10 months ago. James Charles replied to her TikTok and wrote, "OMG, he's so hot," or something like that. And she replied, "Yeah, haha, thank you." But he sent her a similar message several more times. I think it was 3 or 4 times in total. To the point where basically the only thing they ever wrote to each other on TikTok, the only thing in their TikTok DMs, are messages from James Charles saying that her boyfriend is handsome, hot, gorgeous, and all sorts of things like that. And Kayla would always reply like, "Ha ha ha, thank you, thank you, thank you, I love him, lol." She didn't take it badly or anything, but now looking back at it, it's really strange. In October 2024, they were invited to some birthday party, probably of another influencer, and Kayla was there with Evan, their friends, and James was also there. That was the first time Evan and James met. And later that night, Evan told her that James Charles had been telling him the whole time just how handsome he was, that he was the hottest guy at the whole party, that there was no one better looking there, and things like that. Which is just weird because Kayla is his girlfriend. What? And you're Kylie's friend. After that, he even wrote again that her boyfriend is hot. Well, at the beginning of 2025, they were in Hawaii, where of course they ended up breaking up. One day, everyone, the whole friend group that was there was sitting on the balcony, and Evan started saying that he was texting with James, and that basically they were sending each other photos on Instagram, kind of like you do on Snapchat, where the photos expire and you write something like, "How are you?" or "What are you doing?" on the photo, on your selfie. And that's how they were texting. Right away, Kylie thought that was weird. Like, why is James Charles snapping with my boyfriend like this? And why are they texting for so long? Kayla didn't even text with James like that. Not even that much with each other. So why is he texting with her boyfriend like that? Then Evan sent a photo with something like, "Will you fly out to Hawaii to see us?" And James Charles sent another photo in response and wrote something like, "Why should I?" And at that point it was really, starting to get a bit flirty, a bit weird. We even have a video of Kayla being surprised by it, actually showing the phone with that photo from James. Yeah, this is weird. Kayla goes on to say that he and James were probably texting all evening, but since she wasn't there with just Evan, she somehow didn't check up on him. Unlike him, she didn't check his phone, so she doesn't know for sure, but she's pretty confident about it. On the day they broke up, Kyle texted James Charles asking if he wanted to film a video for his cosmetics brand Painted. And Kayla replied, "Absolutely not." This really made me laugh. We broke up and he's honestly the worst person I've ever met. He did terrible things to me. And then James sent that famous message, "Can I have him now?" Yeah, now we're seeing these messages from the other perspective. So James wrote like, "Can I have him? Ha ha ha." Kayla replied like, "No, you really don't want to." He honestly did the worst things you can imagine someone doing. And James said he was sorry. Kyle also told him that he could look forward to a 30-part series on TikTok in the style of "Who the fuck did I marry?", which recent teaser released about a year ago. That format where you make a ton of videos about someone. That kind of long story time is pretty well known, so she said, I'm going to do something similar, get ready for it, I'll tell everything there. And James wrote, hahaha, are you really going to do that? I'm really sorry. And that was the end of it. From those messages it was just clear that Kyle Evan had done something absolutely terrible. Even though Kyle and Ivan broke up, they still kept in touch, and in their last ever phone call, Evan said something like, I hope you're not going to make a 30-part series about me on TikTok. If you do make it, it means you never loved me. So yeah, first of all, he immediately kind of threatened her, saying that if she made it, it would mean she never loved him, which isn't true. She loved him, and then he did this. So that absolutely doesn't rule anything out. And it was just a trick, a kind of guilt trip he used on her so she wouldn't make it, even though luckily she did. But yeah, he actually said, hopefully you won't make that 30-part series. But James Charles was the only person she told about a series like that. In fact, he was the only person she told she was planning something like that. That means James Charles told Evan about it. It meant they had been talking behind Kylie's back the whole time. This was of course confirmed, and Kale also found out that James Charles sent it to Ivan right at the moment she messaged him. Basically, she wrote to James that she wanted to make the series, and James immediately forwarded it and wrote something like, hey, watch out for her, she's gonna make these videos about you. That's terrible. About a month later, Kayla was on Snapchat and saw Ivan's stories where he was posting from the same location where James Charles lives, and he was in a garden similar to the one James Charles has. So she wrote to James, hey, is my ex by any chance in your garden? And he replied, what? Like Evan? Like your ex? Why would he be in my garden? No, he's not. But in reality, he actually was there. And today we know that James Charles paid for Ivan's plane tickets so they could spend the weekend together where they supposedly were just friends, which nobody believed. A month later, Kayla released a video where she revealed everything, and James Charles still stayed silent. He didn't write her anything, he didn't even say, hey, I'm sorry, I really didn't know it was that bad, and I'm sorry that I invited him to fly over to me. No, he ignored it because he thought Kayla had no way of finding out. Then, a few weeks later, Kayla was at the Coachella Music Festival, and that day Be Better released that well-known interview with Zach where they basically exposed James. Of course, James Charles immediately started spamming Kayla, saying how terribly sorry he was, how he had actually felt awful the whole time for not telling her about it, and that if she was at Coachella, they should meet up so he could tell her to her face and explain everything. Kayla replied to him that she didn't want to meet up. He then messaged her again, saying that Evan had manipulated him a lot. To that, Kayla wrote back, how the hell could he have manipulated you? I told you how awful he was. I told you he did the worst things to me that you can imagine, and you still let yourself be manipulated by him? By my terrible ex-boyfriend? That's on you. Honestly, this makes no sense at all, and James Charles made a completely extreme mistake. Yes, he might not have known everything that was going on. And sure, he might have thought that maybe Kayla was exaggerating a little, but to actually invite your friend's ex-boyfriend over, the one she told you abused her and is just a terrible person, that's too much, even if you didn't know anything more about it. After this, she didn't respond to him anymore, even though he was sending her long messages, wanted to call her, she just ignored him, because she knew she had the whole truth. She knows what happened, and she doesn't need James Charles to mix in his side of the story, which is probably completely fake. And of course, that's exactly what happened next. An hour after Evan was convicted and Kayla won the trial, James Charles posted his 10-minute statement. First of all, an hour is crazy. He totally stole her moment, the one she should have been enjoying, because instead of people congratulating her, everyone was messaging her, asking if she had seen James's new video, if she had seen James's statement, and basically he made it all about himself again. Even though this moment was supposed to be about Kayla as the person who won a court case against her abusive ex-boyfriend, Kayla in some way doesn't believe his statement. Yes, she acknowledges that a lot of what he said is true and that he probably really didn't realize how terrible the things he was doing were. On the other hand, she says that this doesn't excuse him in any way, and everyone agrees with that. She finds it funny how he posted evidence from all sorts of people proving everything, but he didn't post any evidence or screenshots of his chat with Evan. That was really missing there. And if he wants to prove that they had nothing going on and were just friends, show us those screenshots. James Charles put so much emphasis on evidence, but then he left out one of the most important ones. Kayla also said that she isn't in the TikTok creator program, which means she doesn't make a single cent from these videos and does it all purely to expose him. Otherwise, no one takes Zeke and Be Better seriously. Basically, sure, people aren't on James's side, but at the same time they acknowledge that what Zeke was saying there probably isn't true for them, and a lot of it is fabricated. However, Kayla didn't comment on Zeke or Be Better at all, so we actually don't know. She neither confirmed nor denied it. Update. James Charles posted another statement on his stories, and most importantly, he included the evidence that we all wanted. There were messages between him and Evan. But what's important to point out is that those messages could already be deleted, so it might not all be completely true. First, he wrote that he watched Katie's video and that he liked how she didn't confirm the lies that Zeke was saying. He also apologized to her and said that he really didn't have anything with Evan. And now we have the evidence. From the way it looks, it was always Evan who messaged him first. So here he wrote that it was great to meet him. That was from the party. Then he asked him if there were any good events. James replied that he didn't know, that he just doesn't go to parties. Evan wrote, "Wow, I respect that." Then he told him to stay safe when they were in LA, the fires. And then here was the part where they were sending each other those photos. From this, it looks like Evan first called him by accident and then actually texted him inviting him to come join them in Hawaii. Then James Charles sent him that photo we've all already seen, where he writes like, "Why should he come?" After that, they just wrote here that basically Hawaii is fun, but then they didn't show whether the messages continued in any way or if they kept texting after that. Kayla says that they were definitely using vanish mode, which is a mode in Instagram DMs where the message disappears after a while, and that's why there's nothing there. It's quite possible that Kayla will give some more updates, but this is everything we know so far. It's an absolutely crazy story. I know this video is really long. If you made it all the way here, write Kayla won in the comments. And I'd also really appreciate a subscription or a like on this video because it's really long and took a ton of work. Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a like to help the video with the algorithm, or a comment, or a subscription, or sharing it.